Good morning, and let me also begin by acknowledging that we meet on the lands of the Ngunnawal and the Ngambri peoples, and also to recognise that today is Remembrance Day, and at 11 a.m. we'll pause to remember all of those diggers and both men and women who have fought for our country, and particularly, as Senator Scullion said, recognising the Aboriginal and Torres Strait Islander service people who have always fought in every battle in Australia, from the frontier right through to every war offshore. And the ANU through Mick Dodson have done a great report about that, if you ever get the chance. I'd like to recognise all members, senators and other friends present, and I particularly would like to recognise Senator Nigel Scullion for hosting the breakfast, and to really commend you on your words, Nigel, because I think they're so important for us to hear, that there is the bipartisan and multi-party negotiations and support taking place here at the Parliament. Thank you all for joining us this morning over breakfast and for an engagement on remote Australia, about jobs, opportunities, challenges and how to build a sustainable future for our remote regions through research, innovation and community development. Now, we've just seen the video that briefly provided an introduction to Ninti One's mission, objectives and work. And today I'll focus on how our organisation can assist communities, governments, industries and businesses to realise the potential of remote Australia. And when I talk about remote Australia, I'm referring to all population groups, although there is a bias to Aboriginal and Torres Strait Islanders, as we are the populations under continuing pressure to reach equality with other Australians across all social and economic indices. As we have seen in the video, the importance of remote Australia for our nation's economy, security, identity, culture and ecology is undeniable. Remote Australia covers 85% of the country. It's home to the world's oldest living cultures. It makes significant contributions to the national wealth through mining, SMEs, agribusiness and tourism. For example, 60% of the nation's mining ventures operate in remote Australia. And the developing Northern Australia agenda, with that agenda, remote Australia is set to play a greater role into the future. However, remote Australia remains distant from centres of economic and political decision making. It is viewed in terms of extremes, often negatively, rarely in a positive term. And governments and policymakers have generally a poor understanding of the complexities and integrated nature of remote Australia. And this has led not only to unrealised economic opportunities, but to the failure to adequately address the worrying disparities in health, education, employment and social and economic outcomes between remote residents and the rest of the Australian population. Indeed, in general, remote Australians have lower incomes, lower employment rates, lower education and poorer health outcomes than other Australians. And remote Australia continues to face significant challenges in terms of preservation of its environment, planning for climate change impacts and improving people's physical and mental health, well-being and social and economic outcomes, especially in Aboriginal and Torres Strait Islander communities. In short, more work, research, investment, targeted policies and effort are required to build a sustainable future for remote Australia and its peoples. This is why I believe it's important to have a national, independent, not-for-profit organisation with a dedication to research and community development for the benefit of remote Australia and its residents and for the benefit of our nation. Ninti One is fulfilling this role with the support of its partners and stakeholders. Ninti One's main approach is to provide practical responses to the complex issues that drive economic participation in remote Australia. We contribute to the federal government's Closing the Gap agenda of reducing socio-economic inequalities between Indigenous and non-Indigenous Australians. Our work is highly relevant to some of the current government priorities, including the Northern Australian Development Agenda in relation to the understanding of the issues pertaining to remote Northern Australia to assist with policy formation and implementation. And we shouldn't forget that Northern Australia policy agenda goes as far south as Central Australia, and so it's not just the coastal areas of Northern Australia. We do this through the management of the research activities and partnerships of the CRC-REP, research and consultancy services, innovation and community development. Our CRC-REP partners and our research is relevant to all remote residents and communities and has a strong focus on addressing the social and economic challenges confronting Aboriginal and Torres Strait Islander peoples living in remote Australia. Now, I'll talk later about some of our recent findings and how we can apply this new body of knowledge to improve policies and program outcomes. Our innovative research approaches, our ability to draw on the capacities of our partners, our presence on the ground and unparalleled access to communities across remote Australia through our extended network of Aboriginal community researchers enables us to deliver relevant and practical solutions. As you can see in the slide, our partners are seasoned players, and our 12 university partners can draw on their faculty staff who represent all disciplines across the spectrum of sciences to humanities and business and economics. Now, while Ninti One has over 10 years' experience working in and with remote Aboriginal and Torres Strait Islander communities, our staff and partners have many decades and in fact lifetimes of on-the-ground experience. Our Managing Director, Rod Reeves, who you've met, has worked in 42 countries in the international development field for over 3 decades, including as General Manager of Coffee International Development. Ninti One recognises that sustainable, healthy and viable remote communities depend on the participation, ownership and partnership of the people who live in remote regions and communities. Therefore, participatory action research is integral to Ninti One's work. Unique innovation that Ninti One applies to participatory action research is to use teams of local Aboriginal community researchers to work in all its research and community development projects. ACRs, as we call them, are based in remote regional communities and are essential to our research and evaluation teams. They assist in the design of the research and then conduct on-the-ground research, participate in the analysis of the findings, and finally test and provide feedback to the communities. And they can also contribute to the implementation and monitoring phases to achieve better results and outcomes. The ACRs are employed and trained by Ninti One and supported by Ninti One staff and our corporate structure. ACRs can deliver better quality research outcomes than most external researchers because of their unique competitive advantage based around location and local knowledge. They use a variety of skills such as impartiality, which is most important, language, cultural concepts and local knowledge that no outsider is equipped with. And this leads to a collection of better information that translates into successful and ethical research and application outcomes that have positive impacts on employment, education and delivery of services to remote communities. And it's also a time and cost efficient practice that is more comprehensive than just working with a few power brokers in a community, as we often see with government officials who fly into communities for a couple of days, meet a few people, fly out, think they've got a knowledge of the community. And I'd go as far as to say that even some of the residents of government residents in communities are limited in who they can interact with within the communities. Aboriginal community researchers can significantly contribute to improving the design and implementation of government policies in remote areas. As mentioned, ACRs are involved in a variety of Ninti One projects at present, including the CRC-REP, research and consultancies for organisations, including government agencies. Now, I'll use a couple of case studies to show how we can assist in providing the knowledge required to develop or adapt policies so that they can work in remote communities using the ACR program. And I should also mention that many of our ACRs have a dual function and many more are being upskilled to take on the role of Indigenous Community Change Agent. The Indigenous Community Change Agent's role is to assist with the implementation of programs on behalf of clients through conducting community forums and other methods of information dissemination within the community. Often it'll be in language and often it'll be to be able to reach those people who most officials, including some councils, can't reach. An example of how the ACR program can assist in adapting national policy to local circumstances is the work we currently do in one of our National Disability Insurance Scheme trial sites, the Barkly region in the Northern Territory. We have recently been engaged by National Disability Services, an NGO, to undertake a research project to assist in the development of support arrangements and associated workforce development to meet the needs of Aboriginal people with disabilities living in the Barkly region. Our ACRs are investigating how support is currently provided to people with disabilities and the different roles played by families and services. They also seek to understand that what people with disabilities think about the support they are receiving now and what they think could or would improve their well-being if they could choose more support. And the knowledge produced will provide the basis for identifying options for models of support that, firstly, reflect the needs and aspirations of the Aboriginal people or persons with a disability, incorporate a comprehensive understanding of the roles of carers, including unpaid family members and paid workers, take into account the requirements of the NDIS, and translate the knowledge into guidance for strategies to support paid and unpaid workers in the disability area in the context of the NDIS. We know the NDIS has got difficulties being rolled out in an urban environment. You could just really appreciate how complex it is in a remote community where a lot of services aren't currently provided, but it also creates opportunities. Similarly, we have been engaged by the South Australian Lifetime Support Authority and the National Disability Insurance Authority to find out more about the needs of Anangu people with disabilities living in the API lands of South Australia in order to help the agencies design and implement their services to better meet Anangu needs. Another example that demonstrates how ACRs can assist in improving service delivery outcomes and foster new initiatives in communities is the work we did at Ntaria on safe driving and vehicle safety issues to improve community safety and reduce the number of road accidents and driver-related offences. The ACRs designed, with the assistance of a Ninti One senior researcher, a survey that they conducted in the community. Trends that emerged from the survey included that 61% of survey respondents felt their driving was sometimes less than safe, and that 78% of them would drive when it was unsafe. And a further 46% of respondents felt the car that they drive is not always roadworthy. Now, this trend needed to be considered in light of several facts. Firstly, that there's no mechanical workshop, tyre repair station or access to vehicle tools and equipment at Ntaria, and the closest place to go for these repairs and maintenance was Alice Springs, 130 kilometres away. And additionally, at the time, there was no public transport around the community or outstations and no public bus services to Alice Springs. So people were left in a dire situation, and so they took the chance. And that's why our jails are also, heavily populated by people in that situation. The ACRs presented the survey findings to their local reference group, the Wurla Naita, and produced a detailed report. They made the following recommendations. A, investigate how a local driving school at Ntaria might be progressed. B, run the driver rehabilitation program at Ntaria instead of Alice Springs, where it's currently delivered. And C, investigate how to establish a local garage. Now, this research proved relevant to a community needs and gained full engagement by the community. And with such information, we can improve service delivery, but also stimulate enterprise development. And we do this by empowering and guiding the community to raise the issues like the establishment of the business as a garage in Ntaria with the appropriate authorities, be they the government authorities or the IBA or whoever. We've also conducted a similar project in Ntaria for our client, who was the Northern Territory Government. It entailed a survey of the smoking incidents and attitudes of the whole community to enable the client to develop a fully informed strategy to address smoking cessation in the community. Now, we have the capacity at Ninti One to undertake health-related projects such as the smoking survey across remote Australia on any area of health. Now, the CRC research agenda has a significant focus on increasing Aboriginal economic participation with a number of projects that specifically look at Aboriginal and Torres Strait Islander cultural enterprise development opportunities in the areas of arts, culture, bush foods and tourism. And this agenda aims to develop models and approaches that allows Aboriginal and Torres Strait Islander people to realise the full economic value of their culture in a manner that respects its shared ownership and promotes its maintenance. Our Aboriginal and Torres Strait Islander tourism product project is addressing ways in which Aboriginal and Torres Strait Islander enterprises can become more adaptive to challenging contexts and generate new market opportunities. And our research has shown the value of clustering small Aboriginal and Torres Strait Islander tourism business as well as tailoring tourism to the specific demographics of visitors. Recent analysis of visitor statistics has assisted remote tourism businesses to adapt their offerings to the market trends, which is so important because if you rely just on what is happening in the big smoke, then that is sometimes not relevant, and so a lot of effort can be wasted. And we've in fact done a similar project with the arts industry, and that as well has really helped all the arts sector across the nation to have much more targeted production and sale of their material. We're also developing technologies for the pastoral industry. The CRC-REP Precision Pastoral Management Tool project is developing software that can automatically monitor, analyse and report back on the pasture and cattle performance of the beef producer. Sorry, Bob Catter, you're not here, but you could have heard that one. Now, this technology will be for the first time in the pastoral industry delivering timely and objective data to enable the station manager to make finely tuned management decisions that will increase their production, reduce their costs and deliver an improved profit margin for their business. And this decision-making tool should not only improve profitability for the beef sector, but it should also assist sustainable land management and sector resilience. Ninti One intends to commercialise this software once the research and the development phase is completed. And another focus is the mining sector, which has the potential to underpin the development of localised economies to varying degrees and provide employment and community development outcomes for Aboriginal and Torres Strait Islander peoples. In an environment where companies are having to consider the economics of their fly-in, fly-out workforce, the opportunities of engagement of a local workforce is much enhanced. Finally, the CRC-REP also has a strong focus on improving pathways to employment and enterprise development through education and training. The Remote Education Systems project is investigating how remote education systems can best respond to Aboriginal and Torres Strait Islander community expectations, aspirations and needs. The project aims to find out how remote Aboriginal and Torres Strait Islander communities can get the best benefit from the teaching and learning happening in and out of schools. Now, the top 4 responses by Aboriginal stakeholders living in remote communities are that the main purposes of education in remote communities must be about, and this differs a little bit from maybe what the thinking is in Canberra, but it's about maintaining connection to culture, land and language. Communities being part of what happens at the school, providing pathways to employment and economic participation, being strong in both worlds, both the Western world and the Aboriginal world. The current Northern Australian development agenda creates another huge opportunity for remote Australia and for Aboriginal and Torres Strait Islander peoples living in the region. The future of Northern Australia is inexplicably linked to the future of Aboriginal and Torres Strait Islander people, and the success of the Northern Australian development will depend on how successful we are in increasing Aboriginal and Torres Strait Islander participation in the economy and achieve better health and education outcomes for all remote Australians. Indeed, Aboriginal and Torres Strait Islander people today comprise a major component of the population and land ownership of Northern Australia, more so than most other parts of Australia. We cannot and we must not envisage Northern Australian development without Aboriginal and Torres Strait Islander involvement and without economic development based on population numbers, occupation and ownership of land. We must make this point, we made this point in our various submissions to the development of the white paper. And we've offered some ideas and made some proposals, including how, by focusing on developing local solutions successful policies can be developed to increase remote economic participation and growth in Northern Australia. And we are still keen to discuss and progress them. More recently, we've offered our assistance in the development of the Developing North Australia CRC. Ninti One manages the only CRC based and operating throughout Northern Australia. Ninti One has acquired expertise that will enhance the operation of a CRC in Northern Australia in many areas. We hope we can continue our fruitful conversations with the Department of Industry, Innovation and Science to explore how we can contribute to the new CRC. In closing, let me reiterate that we are an independent and honest broker that builds and manages collaborations to solve wicked problems, a trusted agent to help negotiate deals and to inform policy and assist with implementation. With current initiatives such as the Northern Australian Development Agenda and Indigenous Advancement Strategy, a holistic approach is required to ensure that the remote and very remote areas of Australia are not left behind. We must avoid the one-size-fits-all approach and develop local solutions which recognise the unique social and environmental local circumstances of communities and are aligned with the residents' needs and aspirations. And this can only be achieved with a whole of systems approach and strong community engagement. Active collaborations between all levels of government and Aboriginal and Torres Strait Islander communities to develop a sustainable plan for improving service delivery, employment, education and safety outcomes in remote communities and areas is essential. Now, I believe this can be achieved by using our ACR and our ICA program. We are committed to continuing our work to better understand the complexities of remote Australia and transform remote knowledge into remote opportunities. So I invite you all to work with us on this to achieve better outcomes for all people living in remote Australia. Thank you.